I used to believe fear was loud. Screams, footsteps, doors slamming. But after everything that happened, I learned the most terrifying moments are completely silent. The first story was told to me by a night security guard who worked at an old textile warehouse that had been shut down for years. The building was still standing, untouched, like time had forgotten it. His job was simple: walk the perimeter every hour, check doors, write notes, and leave before sunrise. On his third week, during a routine walk, he noticed one light on the top floor. That floor had no electricity. He assumed it was a reflection until it blinked off. The next night, it blinked on again, always at exactly 2:17 a.m. When he finally went upstairs to investigate, he found no light source, only a chair placed directly in the center of the room, facing the door. The guard quit after finding his own name scratched faintly into the concrete floor beneath the chair, written in handwriting identical to his. Another story came from a woman who moved into a small apartment after her divorce. She said the place felt peaceful at first, too quiet. Every night, just as she drifted to sleep, she heard a soft sound, like someone exhaling near her ear. She assumed it was stress. One night, she recorded her sleep using her phone. The audio captured her breathing and another breath responding to it. When she listened closely, the second breathing stopped whenever she woke up. On the final recording, a whisper appeared just before dawn, repeating her full name slowly, as if learning how to say it. A man traveling alone once took a shortcut through a rural road that didn't appear on his GPS. The road stretched endlessly, surrounded by trees that leaned inward unnaturally. Every few minutes, he passed the same broken mailbox. Same dent. Same numbers scratched out. He never turned around. Eventually, his fuel gauge dropped to empty, yet the car kept moving. When the engine finally stopped, the forest went silent. No insects. No wind. Just his own heartbeat. He was found the next day, miles away from the road, standing upright among the trees, eyes open, keys still in his hand. His car was never found. A teenage boy once lived in a house where the hallway mirror reflected something that didn't exist. During the day, it showed nothing unusual. At night, it reflected a door at the end of the hallway that wasn't there. The door was always slightly open. Each night, it opened wider. One evening, the boy saw his own reflection standing inside the doorway, staring back at him, shaking its head slowly, as if warning him. The mirror shattered the following morning without explanation. A family camping near a lake reported hearing splashes during the night. They assumed it was fish. When morning came, they noticed wet footprints leading from the water to their tent and stopping inches from where they slept. No footprints led back to the lake. The lake was later drained for construction. At the bottom were dozens of old tents, sleeping bags, and shoes, none matching the family's belongings. A babysitter watching two children noticed the youngest kept staring at the ceiling corner. When asked why, the child whispered, "He's counting." "Counting what?" the sitter asked. "Us," the child replied. Later that night, while the sitter checked the baby monitor, she heard counting whispered from inside the room. The children were asleep. The voice reached 3, then stopped breathing entirely. A man living alone began receiving letters in his mailbox with no postage. Each letter described what he had done the previous day in exact detail. One letter mentioned he would read the letter and feel afraid. He did. The final letter read only one sentence: "Stop checking the mailbox." When he finally ignored it, the letters appeared inside his house instead. A woman driving late at night kept seeing someone standing on the roadside, waving. Each time she passed, the figure appeared closer to the road. Eventually, it stood in the middle of her lane. She swerved and crashed. When police arrived, there were no footprints near the road. Only her own tire marks, circling the area repeatedly, as if she had never left. A janitor cleaning a school after hours heard lockers slamming. He followed the sound to the gym. Every locker was open. On the wall, written in chalk, were the names of students who had transferred out of the school years ago. The next morning, one name was missing: the janitor's son, who had disappeared that night. A group of friends played a voice recording game, asking questions into the dark and listening for answers. On playback, they heard a voice answer questions they never asked. One voice begged them to stop listening. They didn't. Months later, only the recordings remained. No one could remember who made them. A delivery driver noticed one house on his route that never accepted packages. Every time, the door was already open. Inside was empty except for stacked boxes labeled with future dates. One box had his name and tomorrow's date.
He quit his job that day.
The house vanished a week later. A woman living near train tracks heard a train pass every night at exactly 1:11 a.m. One night, the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, closer, until her walls vibrated. When she looked outside, there were no tracks, only deep grooves leading toward her house. A man inherited a watch from his grandfather that stopped whenever he slept. He assumed it was broken, until he noticed scratches on his arms he couldn't remember getting. One night, he stayed awake. The watch ticked normally. At dawn, he found muddy footprints beside his bed, his own. A child insisted there was another child living inside his closet. The parents laughed until toys began appearing that they never bought. One night, the closet door opened on its own. Inside was a room much larger than the closet should have been, filled with children's voices whispering for the door to stay open. A security camera inside an elevator showed people entering and exiting normally, except for one frame every night at 3:03 a.m. In that frame, a figure stood inches from the camera, smiling.
No one could see it in real time.
Only in recordings. Only one frame. Every night, a man heard knocking from beneath his floorboards. He assumed it was pipes until the knocking began following him from room to room. He tore up the floor. Underneath was another floor, older, scratched, and covered in handprints reaching upward. A woman received phone calls from her own number. When she answered, she heard herself crying, begging not to pick up again. The call stopped the day she changed her number. Her old phone continued ringing in. A drawer powered off. A hiker took photos during a solo trip. Later, he noticed someone standing behind him in every picture, getting closer each time. The final photo was taken from directly in front of him. His phone was found on the trail. He was not. The last story is the hardest to explain. A man woke every night at the same time, staring at the corner of his room. He didn't remember waking up. He installed a camera. The footage showed him sitting straight up, pointing and whispering, "You're too close." There was nothing there. Until one night, the camera stopped recording. The man never woke up again. The camera turned back on at dawn, recording an empty room. People say these stories are coincidences, nightmares,
Stress.
but every person who told them said the same thing. They didn't feel watched. They felt noticed. And once something notices you, it doesn't forget. Some of the people who shared these experiences admitted something else, something they didn't say at first. Long after the events ended, the feeling stayed. Not fear exactly, but awareness. Like a pressure behind the eyes. Like a presence standing just outside their field of vision. They began avoiding mirrors, turning off radios, sleeping with lights on, yet the silence only grew heavier. One man said his house made sounds that felt intentional. Floorboards creaked only when he stopped moving. Pipes knocked only after he spoke. Even the air felt thick, as if listening. Another woman described dreams that felt less like dreams and more like instructions. She would wake up knowing where not to go the next day, which streets to avoid, which doors not to open. She never questioned why. Several of them noticed time behaving strangely. Clocks ran slow when they were alone, and fast when others were near. Phones lost signal in familiar places. Messages sent themselves and disappeared. One survivor said the worst part wasn't the events, but the certainty that whatever had brushed against their lives hadn't left. Because fear fades. Memories blur. But being noticed changes something. And once that change begins, it doesn't need darkness anymore. At night, some of them still wake suddenly, certain they heard their names spoken clearly in the dark. No voice follows, no footsteps, only the heavy certainty that something is waiting patiently. Not hiding, not rushing, just watching, learning, and counting the moments until it no longer needs permission to